In no particular order, these are the 10 things that you want on your next diagnostic scan tool if you're a professional mechanic. So in this video, we're going to be using the new flagship model from ThinkTool, the ThinkTool 399 with integrated AI. It also has some pretty other cool little tricks up its sleeve as well, which we'll touch on during this list. In particular, which you might not be that bothered about, it's got a HDMI port and it's also mouse compatible, so I'll be able to share the screen, plug in a mouse, you'll be able to see where I'm touching on the screen. So this tool comes in a nice big box full of adapters and cables and things like that. What I also like about this tool, which you didn't get on the previous flagship tool from Thinkcar, is the docking station. So the tool basically has a home that you can stand next to do all your diagnostics. This way it's easy and quick to keep it on charge. Now, one of the really interesting features that this tool has, it's not in the list, it didn't make it to the list, but it is pretty cool. It's called dual diagnostics. What this feature is going to allow you to do is essentially connect up two VCIs to the scan tool so that you can use one tool and connect two cars to it at the same time. So that would be really cool for day-to-day stuff. If you've got a busy workshop and this tool's tied up on a diagnostic job and someone just wants to do like a service reset, it'll be easy to do. The other really cool thing, especially for those specialists, is you'll be able to connect two cars at the same time that are similar and then compare the data. So really cool feature. These second VCIs should be available soon. You do have to buy them extra. So let's connect up to the car and get into the list. So today we are on this 2018 BMW 3 Series. It's a 330e hybrid, so it's got the 2-litre petrol engine, and there's going to be lots of features for us to have a look at with this new tool. So first on the list, and the list is in no particular order, is diagnostics. Now, of course, when you buy this tool, that is one of the main things you're going to be doing with it. Looking at why the engine management light's on, or you're getting a problem with like a rear window or whatever it might be. So one of the things that's going to be really important is coverage, and this tool actually comes with something that's really cool. Maybe not for everyone, but it has heavy vehicle support as well. So you can see here, if we go onto this page here for heavy duty, it's got all of these trucks, tractors, things like that. Okay, so Volvo, lots of common names there. So if you are working on like the 24 volt systems, this is going to be really good, and it's included on this tool. In addition to that, you can see that this list here is quite extensive. Now, most tools do cover pretty much everything now. If you are unsure when you go to buy a tool that you've chosen, then it's going to be important that you maybe go over to the website and check their compatibility chart. What is also pretty cool with this tool is it also comes with the EV package included, and we're going to have a look at that a little bit later in this video. So once we get into the vehicle, we're going to connect to it now. You really want to be able to connect to all of the modules on the car and do all of the functions between the modules. So what I mean by that is a lot of tools focus on engine management systems because that's the one that we spend most of our time diagnosing. However, you're really going to want to have full features available in things like body control modules and climate control modules, because there's also a lot of live data and functions that you can access in those modules as well. Okay, so this tool now performs ignition cycles automatically, which is really handy. It means I haven't got to get up and keep turning it on and off. Okay, so now it's just checking all of the modules that are fitted to the car, and then in the next page we're going to be able to do our diagnostic scan. Now, something that I am quite impressed with on these latest tools is just how quick we can get a fault code read. Now, it did take a moment to get into the vehicle, but if we go down here and hit this high-speed scan, we can see there that it's very quickly scanned everything. That's done. So that was a matter of seconds there. So if we go into the engine control module here, with our diagnostic functions, ideally we're going to be looking at fault code reads, and live data. These are some of the main features you're going to be using when performing diagnostics. And this tool does it really well. So here we are in the module. You would go here to read the fault codes, and then we can also see that we've got the data stream here where we can select all of the different parameters for this vehicle. What we can also do is search for the ones we want. So we'll select air mass, accelerator pedal position, and let's have a look for fuel pressure. Here we go. So if we now graph them, you can see that we get 3 individual graphs or combine them. What I'll do is I'll just go and start the engine so you can see what that looks like. So you can see there then you've got a nice graph to be able to go back and review that data. If you want, let's say you're doing a road test and you want to go back and check the data after, you've got this record button here where you can go and record it and review it when you get back. However, as I mentioned, you should be able to go into any other of these modules and still get the same level of support with things like live data. So if we go to the transmission control module, we can see that we can also read the data stream in here and get all of those bits of information that are important for diagnosing other parts of the vehicle as well, as you would expect on the manufacturer's tool. So the second thing that is essential for your diagnostic scan tool is component activation. So when you're performing diagnostics, it's really important that you can go in and drive components like fuel pumps, window motors, things like that, to actually confirm that the control unit is working as it should and that that circuit is actually connected and operating. It's particularly useful for things that you can't activate normally, like EGR valves. So if we go and check out what we've got in the engine control module here, we can see that we've got this actuation test here, and we've got injectors, so you can actually turn off injectors while the engine's running for different types of like engine diagnostics. And then we've got a few things in here as well, like the turbocharger, coolant pump, electric fan, fuel pump, things like that. So if we activate the electric fan, let's see if it does what we hope it to do. Yeah, so I think you can hear that going there. It's pretty good. Sounds like it's about to take off. So yeah, quite a short list on there, but again, the lists that you get for these features are vehicle dependent. It's not the tool so much. We'll also have a look in the footwell module on this vehicle, which is essentially the body control module. Let's have a look at what we can do in there regarding component activation. And we have got actuation test there. And there's a few things on here like central locking system, power windows, seat heating, exterior lights and so on. So let's have a look at power windows. We've got a few more things here for us to have a look at. So we'll open the rear passenger side window. So if we click that now and activate, there we go. You can see we can open that window and also go back here and close that rear passenger side window. That's great. So the other thing that you can do with component activation, which is really powerful, is pairing that activation test with a measurement on like your multimeter or oscilloscope. So this does have the ability to add the oscilloscope on here, and we've also got the split screen display. So you can actually look at the oscilloscope reading and activate the components at the same time. So yeah, really powerful stuff for diagnostics, that is. So the third thing you're going to want in your scan tool is maintenance features or service functions. Now they're not strictly diagnostic related, they're more repair. So after you've replaced a component or replaced a module, you might have to do some sort of calibration, for example on batteries and things like that. Or there may be things that you have to perform before you do the repair. for example, winding back brake calipers or putting the air suspension into service mode. So there are two places that you can go and find the maintenance or special features on this tool. They are going to be in the diagnostic page itself. You can see that we've got this special function list here. If we go into Drive, there are just a massive list of manufacturer level procedures, which is just really useful for any workshop. We've also got a list of specific maintenance features. Now, these are the things that I was used to using in the dealership. So, transport mode and things like that, service reset. And they've also got a list of commonly used features here, which is the stuff that you're going to be using day to day. For example, tyre pressure resets, battery replacements, and service reset. Now, you can also access these same features on the home page from here, and if you go to the maintenance section here, this is what the page looks like initially. There's loads of icons up the top there that you can actually scroll through with your finger, or if you press this drop down here, it's got the most common used kind of things across the broader range of vehicles there. So really, in particular, what I would say about those features is that you really want a tool that's going to give you access to those manufacturer level maintenance features, so it's not going to leave you in trouble should you go and replace a component and you actually can't complete the repair. So number 4 out of the 10 things that you want on your professional scan tool is programming. So programming is one of those features that is largely misunderstood by many, and there are different levels depending on the type of tool you buy. So this tool here will do dealership level programming, and what it will do is download those program files from their server so that you're actually putting the most up-to-date information into the vehicle. So you can actually access this programming data from the page we were in before, from the diagnostic page, but we're going in the direct route just to do the programming. So you can see there's quite a few brands on this tool here to perform programming features. And what we can do then is perform a few different types of programming functions. So what we can do here is go to coding programming. We are in the 3 series. This is an F30, and we can go in here and see what it gives us. So one of the benefits of doing programming with a tool like this is that you can actually go in and just program individual modules based on what you want to do. Now, a lot of the dealership tools now, what they will do is only allow you to program the modules that need programming. So what I mean by that, let's say you want to program the engine control module, that's absolutely fine, you can do that. But if the body module and the climate control module and the infotainment also need a programming update, you have to do all of them. Okay, it won't let you proceed without updating the other modules. So here we're into this vehicle, and you can see there are a few different kind of labels under the programming banner. We've got coding, which is like telling the module which type of car it's fitted to. For example, a 2-door coupe, a 4-door saloon, or a convertible. Personalization is like setting things like drive-away locking and things like that, which are mostly done by the driver inside the car now. We've got retrofit, which is if you've kind of fitted something extra like a tow bar. We've got backup and recovered coding data. And down here we've got the programming or programming backup restoration. So what we can do is have a look in the programming section where we might want to perform programming of individual modules. So here is just giving us a warning that programming is a risky process. It is risky if you're not set up correctly. So one thing in particular that you're going to want to make sure you've got is a battery support unit which is capable of supplying power for the vehicle throughout the programming sequence. So we've actually got the Thinkcar programming tool here, and I believe it does up to 150 amp support. Up to 100 amps is like minimum generally accepted, but you just need that steady voltage supply on there so that the programming doesn't fail. Or you could end up bricking the vehicle and pushing it outside, calling a specialist to come and help you out. Once you are inside the program, you can then go in and choose which module it is that you want to perform the programming on. You might be performing programming just to solve an issue. Programming and software does end up picking up bugs that show themselves later on in the vehicle life. So quite often a reprogramming of the module with the latest software will solve problems. You actually find that most dealership technicians, that's what they're spending a lot of their time doing at the minute, is just reprogramming modules as part of like recalls and campaigns to solve common issues. So here we could go in and maybe select ABS. Gives you a bit of information on there about the module, tells you how many times it's been programmed and how many times you can program it. And then from here you can perform the programming. So what you would do is click F0 to perform the programming. You can also do some of the special functions which will be required after programming or replacing a module. So it's quite good that all of these, they're all in the same place. So if you replace the ABS module, you're likely going to go and perform those procedures as well. So really critical thing to have for any modern workshop. So number 5 on the list of essential features for your diagnostic scan tool is remote diagnostics. What remote diagnostics allows you to do is get someone else with the correct tools. Maybe they've got dealership tools, dealership and security access to connect to your vehicle and perform those features that you aren't able to perform. It saves you having to invest in every single different dealer level tool. You can actually just use this one here and connect to someone else who can do it for you. There are quite a few different services like this now, but what makes the one different here on ThinkTool system is you can actually connect to businesses who are basically like authorized vendors. So here we've got a list of guys which have also listed what specialities that they perform, and the different things that you can kind of do with them is anything from programming or initializations to even like technical support and things like that. So you can essentially use these other businesses in that list to kind of help you perform other kinds of tasks. The idea is that you just set up an invoice with them and pay them when they've completed the work. So we did do a video recently where Alex at Thinkcar UK connected to our car here and was actually controlling it through our VCI and internet connection. But these are some of the different things that you can do. So online programming, retrofitting, like we said, about tow bars and things like that, tyre pressure monitoring, anti-theft matching, and battery management. So this feature, remote diagnostics, is really going to help you get out of trouble should you come across something where dealership level diagnostics is required. Although if you've got a tool like this, there won't be many times you're going to need it. So number 6 on the list of things for your diagnostic scan tool is ADAS. So ADAS is pretty much fitted on every vehicle now. It's become commonplace, even from things like automatic high beam assist and lane assist or lane exit warning to the real high level stuff where we've got semi-autonomous driving, depending on which kind of country you're in, where the vehicle will actually drive, brake and steer you round corners. Needless to say, when you work on these systems, you need to make sure that they're repaired correctly. Otherwise, you're going to end up with problems, potentially issues with the customer, warning lights, or the system not working correctly. So this does require additional equipment for most ADAS calibrations, which isn't included with this tool. However, the tool is capable and will work with the Thinkcar ADAS equipment. So you can see here there's a bit of instructions of how to set that equipment up. Now, actually, not all vehicles require that equipment setup or the apparatus to perform an ADAS calibration. That's known as a static calibration. However, for a dynamic type calibration, all that requires is that you go onto the scan tool, tell it that you want to calibrate the ADAS, and then drive it up the road. The car then performs the calibration itself dynamically, hence it being called a dynamic calibration. Number 7 on the list of things to have on your next scan tool is secure gateway. Now, this is a real hot topic right now. Cars are now becoming more like computers. They're holding a lot of personal data, and they can also be accessed remotely. And we can already see this where people can unlock and start their car from their mobile phones. This brings other risks where potentially people could access your car while you're driving it, posing potential safety risks. There's also problems with theft where cars are being stolen and broken down for parts, and you need access to these control units via something like a diagnostic tool to actually pair these parts then onto other cars. So lots of real challenges around secure gateway at the minute, to the point where I think on Fiat you can't even reset the service light without having secure gateway. It's becoming more difficult to do basic things like winding brake calipers back and things like that, let alone the more in-depth things like programming and coding and calibrations. So ThinkTool is on their way to having us covered for this. If we go into the repair info section, we've got Gateway Unlock over here. Currently what we have is FCA, which is the Fiat Gateway, and Renault and Dacia. So they do have more coming. Certainly the big German brands like Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen Group, because this is going to be an essential part of what you need every day. Little hack though, so if you haven't got the secure gateway, you could go down the route of using the remote diagnosis feature and get someone who does have the required access to do the procedure for you. So again, getting a tool with all these features in there means that you're covered for any eventuality. And one very important thing to note about secure gateway is where you buy your tool from. If you buy your tool off eBay or Amazon or any other generic international tool site where you purchase what's known as grey imports, you may find that you can't get the secure gateway feature. So make sure you buy your tool from the reputable dealer or authorised dealer in your market. So number 8 on the things to look for on your next diagnostic scan tool is EV pack diagnostics. Whether you love it or hate it, electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles are definitely here to stay, and sales are rising year on year. It'll only be a matter of time before there's enough of them on the road going wrong that you're going to start seeing them coming into your workshop. So future-proof yourself now. Ensure you get some training as well. The 399 comes with battery pack diagnostics included. You can get in it through the diagnostic way when we were in the system before, but if we just go into enter, search for BMW, and we were on a 3 Series, 330e F30, and there's a number of ways you can do it. You can do it off the vehicle and actually goes directly into the low voltage connector on the battery. And actually a lot of vehicles, which is more convenient, can just read it through the diagnostic connector, which is what we're going to do here. And quite quickly, what we end up with is this overview of all of the cells inside that battery. So what it does is it shows us the highest and the lowest values. That's something you're going to be looking for if you've got range or charging issues. What you'll also be able to do is monitor these voltages while driving the vehicle or charging the vehicle. We can also have a look at temperatures, which is also another important one. So this one here would have been for the cells, and this one here would be for modules, I believe, okay, because we've got less of them. So really nice way to quickly get in to that information. So what we've also got is some other EV or high voltage related data all in the right place. So it just means you haven't got to go searching through it in the diagnostic area, i.e. live data and so on. So it just bunches it all together. So you've got things on here like contactor status and how much current is going through the battery. We've also got voltage details here. So this is just the list of those cell voltages. So it's the same cell voltage we saw on the other page. What we've also got is those temperature details as a list, which we also saw on that battery pack analysis. If the vehicle supports it, you'll also get state of health, which again is quite important, especially if you're buying like second-hand cars or dealing with used vehicles or used batteries, and state of charge. But we can see that these two bits of data aren't supported on this vehicle with this tool. So that there, really useful thing to have if you're thinking about going into the world of EV diagnostics. So number 9 on the list of things to make sure your scan tool has is guided fault finding or fault guidance. Depending on which manufacturer you've worked with, they may have different names for this. This is where the scan tool actually has a guided plan for the mechanic to follow based on the fault code that's stored. These are generally written in a way to help you diagnose a problem in a methodical manner. Sometimes they don't reach a conclusion and might end up telling you to replace a part that isn't faulty, so just be careful sometimes. However, other times they will help you find faults that you wouldn't have thought of looking for, or it will perform functions in the module to repair the problem. Again, things that you just wouldn't know about unless you had this feature. So what we're going to do is have a look at some here. I've put a fault into the engine control module, and if we just go to enter in here, we can see that we've got this fault guidance section here. Now I'm just going to go into read fault code to show you what we've got here. So here we've got a bit of information, and it's going to search. It's going to give us the chance to search for the code, or look at the data stream. We've also got freeze frame and things like that. If you've got a Haynes Pro account, then you can actually search the fault code in there, and it might align it to some bulletins. However, if we go into this fault guidance tab, we can see that we've got something here for the intake camshaft sensor, which is what we're having a problem with. We need to download the special function from the server. So you will need like an active subscription if you want to do fault guidance plans which you haven't performed in the past. It doesn't store them all on the module, or that will take up a lot of space. And here we are. This is the faults that we've got stored. Intake camshaft sensor signal, short to B positive, so short to battery. So we click down here, and then this takes us to a list of things that it's going to check. So what we've got here, functional check intake camshaft sensor. So let's click F1 and see what it does. It's asking us to run the engine at idle speed, which we're doing. And then hit continue. It's going to increase the idle speed, which it has. So it's telling us that there's no value from the camshaft at the minute. We can go back to the selection we saw a minute ago, back to the menu to check the wiring and the plug connections. So here in function 2, we've got check lines and plug connections. So here it's saying to check the line between the engine control unit and the intake camshaft sensor, repair them if necessary. So again, it's not telling us where to check and what to check, it's just telling us what things could possibly cause this problem. So you're more than likely going to need to get your wiring diagram out and just have a look at what you should expect on that camshaft sensor wiring. For example, is it a 5 or 12 volt supply, which one's the signal, which one's the ground, and then checking them correctly. We've also then got check component, intake camshaft sensor and the camshaft wheel. That is assuming that all these lines and plug connections are okay. So it's just basically asking us to check for correct installation, dirt, contamination and damage. So if it's like dirty or whatever, wipe it down. Then what you've got here is the end test module with feedback. You can go on here, tell it what the problem was, and end the test module and repair the vehicle. So they're really quite useful, especially for faults that you don't really know what the fault code means. For example, here in the gateway module, there is a fault code saying memory full, no control unit fault. So it's also permanent. So let's have a look at what that fault guidance does for us. And we've got something on here available. So let's go ahead and take a look. So following data are stored for the tested function or component, memory full, no control unit fault. Let's go ahead. So So it says work through the faults stored in the vehicle and delete all the fault memories. The central fault memory has already been deleted. The front electric module control unit is okay. So that's saying that it's done that deletion for us and everything should now be okay. So if we go in now and clear the fault code, and now we should be able to read the fault code and there's no DTCs. So it looks like that got rid of that fault code for us. Again, no physical testing was required. It was just a control module function that needed performing by a particular scan tool. So the 10th thing that I was going to suggest that you should have on your next diagnostic scan tool is AI, or artificial intelligence. Now, if you haven't tried it out for certain things in your life, it's very, very interesting. It's came on in so many different ways over the last couple of years that it's actually helping many people and businesses perform different tasks, taking off the workload and making things a little bit easier. So we're all kind of waiting in the automotive trade for AI to really step in and do some of the heavy lifting, especially in the diagnostic area. However, we're not quite there yet. So although this tool does have it on there, I did try to ask it about the camshaft sensor fault code that we've got on here, and it did start to turn into a bit of a conversation that ended in asking if I tried resetting the engine light. That being said, I did also try tapping it into ChatGPT, and just asking what it knew about that fault code told me that there was a problem with the high voltage system and told me a few things to kind of check out. I then prompted it that it was actually a camshaft sensor fault code. It thanked me for clarifying that, but then it just went on to kind of tell us a few different things to check that we probably already knew. So basically, we're still kind of having to rely on our core diagnostic skills for any of the problems we come across. However, AI is progressing day by day, and it's a little bit like Google on steroids. At the minute, it's going to be searching all of the information out there on that particular problem. So if there is something that has a lot of known issues already, it's going to give you some really good information. However, if there isn't much out there, then you're still going to have to rely on your own diagnostic and testing skills. And even if it does give you some information, you're still going to know how to use that multimeter, oscilloscope, or whatever, but definitely worth having a look at. So there's some of the things that I think are quite important when looking for a new scan tool. If there's any others that you think that we should have considered, then let us know down in the comments below.